was born in a community that's been heavily impacted by gun violence. I myself have witnessed a number of losses, people being shot in front of me, friends being killed, and then unfortunately being part of the problem myself. At the age of 14, joined a local street gang, and then by the time I was 18, I ended up going to prison for 14 years and 3 months. That's not who I am, right? But coupled with my education and my career, right, is what also gives me a very unique perspective to the field.
For better or worse, modern government is a metrics-driven affair. You can have all the great ideas you want, but if it doesn't take the shape of a device of measurement, at the end of the day, it's very hard to get large-scale bureaucracies to act on those ideas.
When you look at criminal justice systems today and at how policymakers basically, structure the system and run it, people use same bunch of metrics. The most popular are, for example, crime rates, arrest rates, conviction rates, recidivism rates, cost, and each one of them, of course, has its own, rationale, and it does partial job. None of them is dominant or widely used. And although each one of them individually has some value, and of course, policymakers should use them all, they're still incomplete or problematic.
So it's not to say that homicide rates and crime rates are poorly constructed indicators. They're just very powerful indicators that are only telling a really small part of the story.
The existing metrics have pernicious effects on incentives. If you're a police officer and you're being measured by the number of arrests you get done, you have an incentive to arrest people for more trivial things. If you're a prosecutor and you get measured by your conviction rate, you have an incentive not to prosecute someone where you think you might be defeated. It can lead both to being too punitive and to being too lenient. What metric in criminal justice gives us the best information and has the best effect on the incentives of officials? And our answer is social trust. After you have a basically functional state, the biggest predictor of homicide rates is the level of ambient social trust in society. What that's saying is that homicide rates, it's the best statistical indicator of crime rates that we have, are highly responsive to people's feelings of trust in government and trust in their fellow citizen.
Perceptions, which indeed are subjective, they shape behavior. And that's what makes them relevant for us. What people think just shape the way that they behave. And the way that they behave, this comes again to the objective parameters.
Well, we can measure the jail population. We know if it's going up or down. The issue then is what's driving it. And that requires more of an understanding of all the processes that go behind any of those outcome measures. There's a whole sort of critical initial stage of understanding the phenomenon from the perception of the people who are affected by it and from the perception of the people who are involved in the system administering it, that I think oftentimes we don't look at.
Communities and people impacted by reforms or by policies do not see the world in the same way that those making the policies see them. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but to truly understand the success or failure of a policy, you really have to engage in a conscious effort to step into the shoes of those who will actually be impacted by the reform. So the idea, when we talk about a community-based or a bottom-up indicator, is to come up with an indicator that is meaningful to, but also representative of a community, bringing folks together for a discussion that lasts a couple hours, where the question is, what does safety mean in this community? What does safety look like? And that's when you start getting things like, hearing shots, or being able to walk to the corner store at night, being able to sleep with my windows open, knowing the names of my neighbors, things like that.
We need local champions. We need people from the community to really champion programs that really work, right? In other words, we need the client, the participant who's engage in those services and for them to speak up on what they've learned and how useful the program was or was not, right?
The connections between seeing children playing in the park and police reform might not be so apparent to a policymaker, but to folks living in those communities, it's, that connection is direct and very important.
People with lived experience are overlooked. And that's a dysfunction of the system. We're trying to change the system that you need to engage the people who've been a part of the solution or addressing these issues from some time as well, right? That's also critical.